Hi guys, this is Steve Moss, pastor at Boulevard Christian Church. God's mission for us here at Boulevard is really simple. We help people find Jesus and we help people follow Jesus. And our teaching team hopes that this message that you're about to listen to will help you learn to grow and trust Him more than before. If it does, would you consider giving a gift to Boulevard to help us carry out the mission that God has given us? Thanks. We hope your heart is fully open to what God has for you in this message today.
Good morning, Boulevard family. It is indeed good to be back with you. If you're watching us live stream, hey, it's okay. I think my mom's watching it today. Hi, Mom. Good to see you. Hope you like this, Mom. I want to start out. I've got some things I want to share with you today, but here's what I want to begin with is this. If you have been around, you'll know that our elders were incredibly gracious in giving Dawn and I a 6-week sabbatical where we were able to step away from some of the responsibilities of the ministry here, and we're very, very generous in doing that, and communicated to you all, hey, try not to, talk to Steve about stuff going on in church or whatever. And I'll just say this, I was 6 weeks out, and I didn't count, but I don't think there's any more than 3 times in those 6 weeks that anyone contacted me about any particular thing in ministry. And that's kind of hard because that's what I do and it's what I love to do as a shepherd. But I want to tell you how much I appreciate and thank you all for honoring that communication from our elders. And 2, I realize people don't get 6 weeks off. You don't get 6 weeks off. And so I kind of fully expected some snarky comments, well, like, I don't get 6 weeks off. You have been so gracious about that time that we had away. And that really, I just want you to know how much I appreciate that and how grateful I am to you as the body of Christ and my family in Christ here. And thank you very much. Thank you to our staff. They filled in the gaps. Many of them went way the extra mile to take care of things while I was away. All right. So having said that, I'm going to move into this. And actually, it's not too far of a jump in our transition. I'm speaking today. We're doing a 2-week series called Simplicity, and this week is on our schedule. So the irony of this particular sermon topic is not lost on me, the fact that I was out without a schedule for 6 particular weeks. Here's kind of a weird thing, and I remind people of sometimes if you're not around, that all our sermons for this year, the entire pack of them from January to December, were all decided, and who would preach them were decided last September at our communication retreat of the guys who preach here. And so just kind of the irony of the fact that I would come back from these 6 weeks and the first time I'm up here is we're talking about our schedule is kind of an interesting thing. So here's kind of what I want to start with this. So over a period of the last few years, I've talked with a lot of different people. I had that opportunity. It's one of the joys of my jobs. Doctors and lawyers and people who work in industry and all different levels of folks who work at factories and businesses and small business owners and social workers and daycare workers. And I spent a few minutes last week talking to one of our members who works here in our community, and all day long he works very, very hard at just taking out trash. And yet there's this joy in his life in doing that. I talk to those people, and age-wise, I talk to people who are over 90 and in their 80s and retired at 70 and 60 and even 50 sometimes. I talk to parents of teenagers and parents of younger children. I talk to single parents and all those kinds of things. I talk to people who are Hispanic and Native American and Caucasian and Black. Does that cover it all? I talk to a lot of people. It's a good thing. It's a wonderful thing. This is a diverse community. Our community is a diverse community. And there is, as we engage in conversation, there's this universal kind of refrain that goes on. And even before we talk a lot about the weather that Oklahomans love to talk about, boy, it's humid, isn't it? We talk about this. How you doing? And what we hear over and over and over is this: I am so busy. I am so busy. Man, Steve, we're just so busy. We just got so much going on. It's become the standard greeting for people. And I've noticed this even recently, that even if I'm talking to college kids, high school kids, middle school kids, they're talking about being stressed and how busy they are. Now, this is a 2-week series, all right? Today is scheduled, all right? And I was reminded as I started thinking about this some time ago and looking at it, I think I could stand up here and talk a long, long time about your schedules, our schedules. And honestly, I think we could talk about it and you would walk out of here maybe having some sense of conviction or not, and probably very little thing would happen. Very little change would happen. And here's why. And I share this because it was one of the very, very first things when I was setting out alone with the Lord in day 2 or 3 of my sabbatical time that God began to place on my heart. It was this: that our schedule, our lifestyle will not change without a change of mind. Our lifestyle will not change without a change of mind. Now I want to back up just a second here and say this, that when I was out on the beach and I was sitting there on day 1 or day 2, is that I'm saying to God, hey God, here I am, fill me up, whatever, and what he said to me was kind of basically like, well, before I ever heard anything, I heard this sound. Maybe it's familiar. Beep, beep, beep. And what I realized was that was God's holy backhoe coming to do some major excavation and examination work on my life and my heart and my soul. And so the excavation began at that point in time. And what it looked like was kind of a Psalm 139 thing. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me, know my thoughts. He does. See if there's any grievous way in me and lead me in the way everlasting. And we're not gonna jump into all that and take it all apart except one word. See if there's any grievous way. Well, grievous for us, when we grieve, what do we grieve? We grieve something that we have loved, and we've loved it and we've lost it. And so when the psalmist says, see if there's any grievous way in me, the griever is not me. What he's talking about is there's something in my life that is grievous, or that is causing you to have sorrow, that is causing you to grieve because you had it and then you lost it. That's what the psalmist is talking about. And I think, if I can put these two together, I think God, his holy backhoe, was there to take out some things within my heart, some things, the way I was scheduling myself, some habits I had and some thought patterns I had that he labeled it was stinking thinking. And I think he backed it up to try to excavate some of those things out of my life. So let's go back to this thought. A change of lifestyle requires a change of mind. And that's why we could talk about this for a long, long time about you should change your schedule. You should really do it. And I could give you 5 tips for changing your schedule and making it more purposeful or whatever. I don't think it would have any particular effect. So someone has said, maybe I've said it in sermons, if you want to know what's important about a person, look at their bank statement, right? But I think the more I think about it, that maybe if we want to look at what's important to us and important to other people, what we look at is actually their schedule, because we have this finite amount of time and energy, and what do we choose to spend that time and energy on? So here's kind of a second truth. Your schedule is a true reflection of what you treasure. The other reason, as we talk about why just talking about schedule isn't necessarily something that would be really productive for us, I think here's the other reason. It's because I think we kind of like our busyness. We kind of do. I'll take it another notch. We kind of like telling people how busy we are, if we're honest. Maybe not completely. See, because it has a tendency for some of us to be kind of an escape from facing who we really are versus who we want people to think we are. And this busyness keeps us safe. It keeps us kind of shallow in our relationships, so we really don't have to have tough or in-depth conversations with people. We can kind of just keep it at a chatter area. We love saying, I'm so busy. There's a sense of importance. I learned that several years ago about myself, that when I say I'm so busy, there's something inside my heart that goes, man, boy, I don't know what to do without me. I don't know what the world, will the church go on if I step out the doors? At least I felt that way. We want to be productive, and I think there's something that God placed in you and I that makes us want to create and produce, and that's a good thing. But all of a sudden, it becomes kind of the monster that drives us, and I'm so busy says I am producing, which means I am really needed around here. And so we kind of like saying that, don't we? You all are very quiet. You are so very quiet. That's okay. You remember scar stories? I don't know if do girls tell scar stories? I don't know. Guys tell scar stories. I started to say boys, but men tell scar stories, right? And it's really easy. Scar stories, the winner is who makes you wince the most, right? You telling scar stories, and guys, are gathering around, and pretty soon someone goes, yeah, well, look at that. Well, what happened? And they tell their story or whatever, and you're like, whoa. And then someone's always got a, whoa, look at this. You don't want to look at that. But the biggest wins. I remember like when we were in elementary school and we're all sitting around, and I always hated it because I didn't have any broken bones or big scars. And so I was always kind of like bottom of the totem pole, whatever. I got my tooth pulled once. And we're sitting there telling stories, and this kid in a t-shirt, Mike, sitting there, and all of a sudden, Mike does this. He takes the bottom of his t-shirt, you know what's coming, and he pulls his t-shirt up. And it looks like this kid, 10 years old, had been gutted. And he was one of those kids who had some kind of a heart situation, and then, and they'd cut him from the top to the bottom. And it was like, Mike wins. We all knew it. It was the wince thing, okay? It happens every time. And we're a little bit like that with our stories. It's like, all right, you think you're busy. Well, I haven't taken a day off, and whoa, you really are busy. You must be important. Yes, I am important, thank you. We like our busyness. If I can turn the corner for just a second a little bit. Years ago, James McCracken had a sabbatical, and during his sabbatical, he taught at Bible college, and he came back from his sabbatical, and we went immediately into a staff retreat like a week or two later. And so we're all having this conversation, and somehow I didn't even remember what we were talking about, but he tosses out the word conundrum. And we just ate his lunch. Whoa, a second. You have been in academia, and you might have picked up conundrum in academia, but you got to remember who's at the table with you, right? Okay? All right? Because, you can't use it because I don't know what you're saying. All right? And so we just ate him up on it. So, okay, so use another word. Well, a conundrum is where you have a problem with no clear possible answer. And so now that I've told you what it is, I'm going to tell you that I think we've got a little bit of a conundrum today in that we are so busy, but we kind of like our busyness. But we are also soul tired. I said soul tired, mind tired, not just physical tired, soul tired. But we're not sure if it's sustainable, this crazy schedule that we're leaving, but we believe it is necessary for us and for our children to achieve and hold on to what is important. And to complicate this conundrum as followers of Jesus, some of us actually believe this is what God has for us. This is what he desires for us as our parents. And so I'm just going to stop that one, nip it in the bud, and say, it's not. It's not what God has for you. That busyness of lifestyle is not what he demands, and it's not what he desires, and it's not the rhythm of life that he created us for or for us. See, when God shows up at the beach 6 weeks ago, 7 weeks ago, and says to me, Steve, not Pastor Steve, Steve, my child, when he says you are where you are because you are believing and acting out narratives and ideas that are simply not true about what you must do and what your life must look like and what your schedule must be, the examination and the excavation begin at that point in time. So I'm going to ask you if you'll allow me for just a few minutes just to be kind of God's holy shovel, his holy backhoe for just a few moments. If I would promise you that whatever removal must be done that might be painful, that it is for a restoration and a refreshment. And as one person says it, not just restoring, but a restory. We have to start here. What happens to us? See, I don't think the schedule changes because I don't think we realize what happens to us when we are so busy. See, when we're busy, we get tired. When we're busy, we grow tired, not just a physical tiredness, but we actually lose the space to be able to think clearly and make decisions based on our values. We start making decisions and living on the fly. We become reactive. And busyness begins bringing life so quickly that we really can't give the proper emotional response to the people around us that we love. And we actually begin to grow numb after a while. That is absolutely what happens as we grow busy. We become unable to care even when we want to. We lose the capacity to be fully present and listen to those who we need to be listening to. One of the tougher moments in my sabbatical, several weeks in, Dawn and I were sitting somewhere, I'm not sure where we're at, and she says to me, she goes, man, I really enjoy being with you. And I was like, that's kind. And she paused. And I promise you, as in kind of way that she could say it, she said, but I do not feel like I have had your full attention for a long time. Ouch. Because we know that our whys understand how valuable they are to us based on how much attention we give them. So do the math. So this person that is God's gift to me, the biggest gift other than his salvation, is feeling not valued because the choices I have made, have been unable to give her the full attention that she needs and desires from me. See, in busyness, everything becomes either a trudge or a scramble. In busyness, there's this lack of rest. And so we lose the ability to enjoy fully beauty, to enjoy fully friendships, to enjoy even really a good meal. We're just knocking it out and swallowing it. We lose the ability to laugh deeply. We lose the ability to laugh often and deeply with our children. That busyness drains you and I slowly in a way that even when you are not going and on the move, you don't have the emotional, relational energy to just be, to be present. It brings you to a place where you just eventually kind of want to be left alone. And friends, I think that we sense this at some level. But for me, it actually took reading the words in a book to fully realize the toll it was taking on me and my heart and my soul. And that's part of that confounding conundrum is that we hear it and we kind of know it, but we believe that there's no other way because it's the only way to get what we treasure. I'm going to dig a little bit deeper. I want to speak just for a moment to a portion of our church family, to some of our young parents with children. What do we treasure? We treasure our kids, right? We treasure kids. They're God's gift. This last weekend, I went to Edmond, and 2 of our boys were there with families, and man, Tyler has a pool, and so man, we were just, from the time we were there, we were just in the pool, and I was, I throw them, get them by the feet, and I throw them, and they do a backflip, and Evie was pretty easy at 50 pounds, and Hudson at 100 pounds, decided he wanted to be thrown too, right? But we just gave it our best shot, and we play submarine and surfer, where I swim along the bottom of the pool, and they try to stand on my back and see how long they can stand. And we have all kinds of games. We just played. Man, it was fun. What a treasure. So good. But in our desire to love them, and here's where it gets a little tricky, a little sticky. In our desire to love them, which is all good, we have been told, and mostly by well-meaning people, even sometimes people who are believers, that if you love your child, you will give them every possible opportunity to use the gifts so they can have success in life. And this, my friends, we are told, is what a good, loving parent does. So what's that mean? Where's that put you as a parent of a child that you love? What it means is that we have to commit ourselves and our children and the entire family to this lifestyle of crazy busyness sometimes and activity that will require a lifestyle of busyness with undeniable consequences. To be a good parent, you must. And it's this mantra that's been spoken so many times by so many. It is the normal. It is the normal. And we have believed it's true. And I know, saying this, that probably internally as a young parent with children, you are probably pushing back internally, that you want to cross your arms, that you want to turn it off. And I'm asking that you'll just listen for a moment. I'm not after you. I'm not after you. I promise you that. But when we buy into this as a truth, we become increasingly vulnerable to its demands. What's that sound like? Here's what it sounds like. It sounds like you getting a call from a friend of yours and going, hey, we got this guy, he's a coach of name the sport, name the activity, or whatever, and he's just putting together a team, and he just really wants some good ball players, and he wants your child to play. He's seen them. He thinks there's a potential there. That's kind of where it starts. Our little granddaughter Evie, both parents play ball. Went up about a month ago, whatever, and she was playing some softball, and so we got our gloves out and stood in the front yard, man. And that little girl, you can throw almost anything you want to her, and she just stands there and just catches it wherever it is. And then when she throws the ball back, your glove pops. That's a good sign. When she swings a bat, she swings about twice as fast as I ever did at that age. And in her last game, Pop's always got kid stories, right? And in her last game at left field, she scoops up a ground ball, makes a throw to third base, and throws out the runner at third base. She's 8. And you know what's going to happen? If it hadn't happened already, someone's going to see her. And they're going to come to mom and dad, and they're going to stroke them a little bit, and say, hey, man, we watched your daughter. She's got some potential. And I'd like her to play for my ball team this next year. They may not say what it requires, but they're going to say, she's got promise. She's got some skills. And mom and dad go, well, we want her to have every opportunity to use those gifts. And the race begins. They start making promises. Sometimes it's just things that evoke fear. One of my sons was talking to a parent up in Missouri this last week who had talked to a coach, a high school coach, who made this statement: unless that child is playing football at 4th grade level, they will not play varsity for us at our high school. Now, you got to take that and think through what that means. There are no decisions to be made there. Either he doesn't play ball ever, or he's not going to play high school ball unless he does this. So we're going to commit ourselves to whatever they say has to be done so I can give my child every opportunity because I love them to be successful in their life. Years ago, our youngest son was playing volleyball down at a tournament in Oklahoma City. He gets done. He's a pretty good volleyball player. This guy comes over and he goes, hey, I run a volleyball program over in Oklahoma City, and your kid's got the potential. And then he said this, D1. Division I, that's the big boys. And he started throwing out teams. He said, I'm just pretty positive he could play at that level. I don't know if he could or not. But I got to say, I can tell you what it did in my heart as a dad. Oh, he could play D1. And the hook began to set. And we actually saw it before it got set too hard and said, no, we're not interested in doing that. That's a cost we're not willing to pay. When did playing or participation at a college level become the ultimate meaning and target of success for our children? When did that happen? When is that the ultimate goal for our kids and their success and how we weigh their success or not? And I could talk about scholarships and the percentages of the kids that actually play. And I'm going to just tell you, I looked at them this week. I chose not to put it in there. It's minuscule, the number of kids who are playing at a 6th or 7th grade level, who actually go to play at a college level. Even those who play in high school, the percentage who play in a college at any level is very small. So before I go on, I want to be kindly clear to you, folks. This is not about sports being bad. I love sports. I was raised in a sports home. Our kids played sports. It's not about that. This is not even today about them being in church more. This is not about you kind of making some poor choices in this area. This is about doing something that you as a parent very much are believing is in the best interest and in love for your child, when the facts show that this commitment and this busyness that we have created and chosen is having consistently, undeniably bad effects in those kids. Here's what people who are doing the research in these are finding: that there is a significant decrease in the creativity of these kids as they become young adults. Might not be available, or might not be seeable now, but as they become young adults, less creativity. And it's not the organized activity itself, it's the lack of downtime and playtime. Number two, and this is part of that these organized activities versus just time for play have increased what in their life? Increased adult control. They're in school 7 or 8 hours, they leave, they've got another couple of hours in adult control. And the concern is, and what they're showing is, that consistently children are more often beginning to think like adults, not in a good way, who are in these high adult situations. They are beginning to focus more on materialism, on status, on trophies. They're experiencing more and more the sense of helplessness, narcissism, anxiety, depression. Now, I know some of you are going, well, you're just an old guy, and I get that. So I called a couple people that are not old guys, and if you don't mind, I'm gonna play a family card here. Our son Lane is the director of Move conferences. Move is our CIY, Christ in Youth. Our young people will go there tomorrow. I asked him and I asked our son Drew, who is a campus minister at Oklahoma State. They are in the midst of culture for high schoolers and colleges constantly. This is who they live for and they teach and they live with. And this is what Drew said. He said, Dad, I am seeing students who are exhausted and stressed and anxious. It's kind of interesting because studies are showing that young people are physically hanging out with each other less than they used to. And I think it's a combination of more built-in activities, that sports that require daily practice and tournaments, and also the fact that it's easier to entertain yourself at home. Lane said, Dad, I echo Drew's observations. He said, that's the world kids are being raised in right now. It's all about the grind. It's all about the hustle. He said, our theme at Move this summer is about the rest that kids need. And we are continuing to hear from youth pastors that these kids are releasing emotion on the first couple of nights that we've never, ever seen before. It is like they are waiting to explode a wave of relief that they didn't even know they needed. That's what's going on in the lives of our kids. And whether your kids, I know this is hard to hear. I know it's hard to hear. When we believe we're going the right way and we've committed ourselves to the right way, and then we realize very clearly that this is not the right way. It's actually having an adverse response or consequences to what we thought. And I gotta say this because I think maybe this is what's going on, this does not have anything to do with whether your kids really like it. We know that if parenting by what our kids like and dislike, that's pretty obviously not good parenting, right? Whether it's school or their diet or whatever it is. And it's not really whether you like it or not, because we all like stuff we shouldn't like. That's just life. These consequences, these effects we're talking about are purely the result of a busyness that has taken away the amount of free time that our children and adolescents need to be emotionally and mentally healthy. Here's a question. What would you do? What would you do today if you were giving your child a prescription drug or a supplement that everyone believed was very helpful and everyone was giving their child, but then you found out today that it was actually dangerous with clear adverse and long-lasting effects? What would we do? See, I promise, please know, I'm not sharing this tough to hear truth to shame you. I recognize as parents, so many of you are great parents. I love watching you parent. I'm not calling you out. I'm calling you to. I'll step away from just the parenting thing and kind of come back to just us overall as people who live in a society that likes busyness, that kind of rewards busyness. I talked about the idea that this busyness drains us in so many ways. It does something else. Hebrews 1, the writer's talking to a bunch of Jewish people, and he's writing to them about who Jesus is over and over. He is the radiance of God's glory. He is the exact representation of the being. He was there when God created the world. God created the world through him. The whole chapter is just on Jesus. And then when he goes into 2:1, he says, hey, listen, we must continue to think about these things so that we do not drift away. Now I'm going to throw two pictures at you, and then I'm going to see if I can connect those pictures, hopefully, all right? The idea of drift away, the word in the Greek means this. It is literally, with someone reading it would get this picture. There is a boat and there's the shore, and the boat is 12 or 15 feet away from the shore. And there's somebody in the boat, and the person in the boat is napping, or they're fishing, or they're eating, or they're in conversation. They're just not paying much attention. And all of a sudden they look up, and they're not 12 or 15 feet away from the shore anymore. Now they're 150 feet. They're out in the middle of the lake, and things may be getting a little sketchy. They don't know what to do. Now we've got some waves to deal with, and we're way far away from the shore. Did they do anything to get there? They just drifted because they weren't paying attention. And the writer of Hebrews says we must pay more careful attention to what we have just heard about Jesus and who he is and what he desires to be in our life, so that we will not drift away from our values and those things. And again, I say to you, I know that the decisions you have made have been made in good trust of what you have heard, and you have believed that it is the good and positive, even godly things to do for your kids. And we're saying it's not. And so we have to be careful that we are paying attention to Jesus and what he has for us. Here's my second picture. You know what I really love? I love a hot dog at QT. I cannot hardly walk through the doors of a Quick Trip. We have, it's bad enough I've got a 1/2 mile from a church. Now I have to drive by one every single day on my way back and forth to work. And I'm telling you, I don't know what it is, man. I come in the QT door and those little things are sitting on those little turners. And sometimes I just want to stand and just bow and just go, give it all to me. And you know, the only thing better than one is two. And they're always for sale, two for cheaper. So it just seems like a good stewardship of Jesus to do that, right? I love those things. I love them. And man, you know what I realized? I realized one, that they are just tasty. They are so tasty. Also realized that I can grab a couple of those wings on my way out of town for somewhere. And while I can't eat a grilled chicken salad while I'm driving, I can eat a couple QT dogs. And most of the time I do get mustard on my shirt, but doesn't, you know. So see, I can eat it on the run. And you know, I realize that as I eat them, my taste buds for them increase. I want them more. And if I have a chance to eat something good at QT, which there's not a lot, but a little bit, if I have a chance to eat something good at QT, maybe they've got a little basket with fruit in it, and one of those hot dogs, every time, my tastes have changed. And I can do that on the fly. See if I can put this together. That as we become busy, our taste buds we like busy. We're comfortable with busy. And not even just the busyness, but like the spiritual food that we feed ourselves becomes kind of convenience store spiritual food. Like we're dropping in for 7 or 8 minutes, you know, a little quiet time. See if I can pull aside for a few. You know, listen to a couple of worship songs on the way to work. Everything good about that, except that's not really a spiritual meal. And so we have to be careful that we are paying attention to what Jesus has called us to. And that is not just the what, but that is also the pace, so that we can be who he desires for us to be, but so he can be in our lives what he desires to be. There's only one place in Scripture that Jesus really makes clear or speaks of his heart. Come to me. Come to me. All who are labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me. Might help you to know that he's really, although the picture is a yoke of an oxen, it's kind of like that, but really, truly what he's talking about is that Jewish teachers in that day, their teaching were considered a yoke. And they would say, come and follow me, and you would take on the yoke of that particular teacher. And most of the yoke of Jewish teaching was a lot of rules. You got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do all these things. And Jesus said, hey, take my yoke. Drop that yoke and take my yoke, and I will give you rest. Learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. Not just better sleep. So see, I'm not talking about just removing something from your life. I'm talking about allowing him to fill, to restore you, to recalibrate you to find the true north. All who are labor and are heavy laden. Who's Jesus speaking to here? He's speaking to people who have been heavy laden with teaching that just wears them down. Isaiah, several hundred years earlier than that, talks to them and he says this. He's talking about these teachers that these people are under. He says, do this, do that. There's a rule for this. There's a rule for that. There's a little bit here and there's a little bit there. That's who Jesus is speaking to. And then God says through Isaiah, God will speak to this people. This is the resting place. Let the weary rest. I think you're tired. I think you're tired. If you're like me, you were, or you are. Maybe some enjoyment in it. But I think inwardly, if you were to stop and take your foot off the pedal, you'd think, I don't know how long I can sustain this. But I got to because it's for my kids. And I'm telling you, no. What we have been told is not true. And it's time to take our foot off the pedal and to give our children what God designed for them and created us for. And what he designed for our lives was a rhythm, a daily rhythm where we are up for a while and when we rest for a while, we put ourselves down. I was talking to a gal the other day. I had never thought about this before, never heard it before. She lived about 15 or 20 years in meth addiction and now she deals consistently. She's the director of our For His Glory Homes ministry here in town. And we were talking about people who are struggling with meth and she said, Steve, do you know that people with meth consistently have back problems? And I'm thinking the drug is having an effect on their organs. She goes, no. She said, they stand so much. Meth keeps you awake. She said they stand 2 or 3 or 4 days at a time because they can't sleep. And she said, literally, the overuse of their muscles in their back, they all begin to develop back problems over a period of time. We are not created to live the way we are living. And our souls and our bodies and our minds are telling us that if we will listen. And our children are not either. There are all kinds of studies on overuse of their own muscles because of the amount of time that they're spending in sports, but that's really a side issue. I think you're tired. And God's just not talking about just getting rid of something. He's saying, come to me, and I will give you rest. I am gentle and lowly of heart. Learn from me. He's created daily rhythms and he's created weekly rhythms where in creation, he said, there's a day that you just step aside. He calls it Sabbath. And that time, it's not that you're doing nothing. You're doing the things that fill your soul up in the portion at the pace that he gave these things to you. When God put everything in order for his people. Do you realize that every 3 months he put a feast there, and in that feast there's about a week where people just celebrated and where they just pulled apart from the farm or whatever they were doing, and they just for a week they just rested and celebrated together. That's the rhythm that we have to have, not out of duty or obligation, because that's the life that God has for us. God desires to be with us. If we will come to us, he will come to us. If we will just come to him. Some excavation work and some filling. I want us to be quiet for just a moment. Just a moment. Because I'm a little fearful that because of the pace that we'll walk away from here and jump right back on the train. So let's create a little bit of time of stillness. Just be quiet and allow the Holy Spirit to speak to us on some things that we might need to hear. Take a deep, deep breath and release it slowly. Father, Jesus, speak to those I love, to those you love. Go to those deep places where we have been convinced of something, where we hold it to be true, and so we hold it tight. Remove the fears of what might be thought and what might be said if we act on the truths we have heard today. We are weary, Jesus. Be our soul's rest. Rest the souls of our children. Tomorrow, 40 high schoolers and 7 adults will get on a bus and head to a conference for 5 days on learning to live a life of rest. Open their hearts, open the doors of their souls so they can pour out what is there. All the anxiety and tension and stress. Thank you. Thank you for this body of believers. Draw us near. Be our rest. Say with me the name of Jesus. 1, 2, 3. Jesus. Let's say it again. Jesus. One more time. Jesus. He is our rest.